The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was an ambitious movie that had a lot of great ideas, but it kind of failed to execute most of them well, and for a lack of better words, it felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. This was released back in 2014, and I think I had nostalgia colored glasses. Before, when I watched it recently, I kind of realized how much better it could have been. Now, before people have their pitchforks ready, I have to clarify, I do like parts of this film, but not the whole thing. I see it similar to the first Amazing Spider-Man film, in which they both could have been better than they are, but the first one is actually kinda good. Let me talk about the good things in this film, because they do exist. The first being is how they explored more about Peter Parker's parents. In the first movie, it's more so suggested subtly why they left Peter with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben. In the beginning, we're shown the both of them on a getaway plane trying to escape from Oscorp. For those of you that don't know, Richard Parker, Peter's father, developed the radioactive spiders, the ones responsible for Peter's powers in the first place. Now, you may be wondering, why wouldn't Richard hand them over to Norman Osborn? Well, that's because he found out that Norman Osborn developed a deal with the military to help his funding, and more importantly, wanted to use the spiders as weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, you heard that right. Richard and Mary Parker start to conversate, and then Richard notices that something is very off with one of the pilots, who comes into their area as he notices the blood that's on his hands. After enough prying from the pilot, Peter and Mary try to fight him off as they realize that Oscorp sent him in to finish him off. The pilot manages to kill Mary and gets very close to getting Richard, but Richard sends him flying after he shoots one of the windows of the plane. Richard, suffering from one of his injuries and the plane crashing, makes use of his dying moments to upload his file and keep it safe. Another thing that they did really great was the use of humor in this film. Compared to the first one, it felt like the humor hit its mark here way more and felt more appropriate. It felt quicker, sharper, dragged less, and was set at the perfect times. I might need to rewatch the first one because I may have been too harsh on it looking back. But as of now, my opinion stands. My favorite theme and recurring idea throughout this film is Peter constantly seeing Gwen's dad, George Stacy. This is because of his last words to Peter, which were,
"Leave Gwen out of it."
Everywhere he goes, he's reminded of him, particularly when he's with Gwen. I love this because it posed a great idea to Peter, which was that those closest to you can suffer the consequences of your actions and the life that you live. This affects him so much to the point where he's constantly torn whether he should be with Gwen or not. However, this does take its toll on Gwen as she really wants to be with him, but even she's reached a point of not being able to take him flip-flopping constantly. Now that I've proved that I like certain parts of this film, let's get to the bad ones. What made this movie kinda suck was the same thing that made Spider-Man 3 kinda suck as well. It was the introduction of too many villains and themes. There were too many of them running at the same time for the story to be great. I feel like Max's character was relatable, but wasn't built up well. At least with the case of Dr. Kirk Connor, he was built up well, had a relationship with Peter Parker, and had enough time on screen before he descended into madness, so that us as the audience had enough time to care and understand him and his actions. I feel like the only other thing that might have helped his case as Electro was another aspect to him, whatever that might be. However, I will say that the score during the battle scenes were amazing, particularly whenever Electro was on screen. He may have looked like a life-size electric testicle and complained like there was no tomorrow. Damn, his action scenes were freaking sick. Electro kinda had some redeeming traits with his origin story and how kind he was. Damn, Harry Osborn had none of them. After his father, Norman, passed away, he was thrust into leadership position over Oscorp. However, a bunch of the guys on the board didn't like that and wanted him gone, and they got their wish by framing him. That's enough sympathy for this kid. Harry goes on to complain to Peter and Spider-Man about how much he needed his blood to cure his illness, the same one that he got from his dad. He then continues to descend further into madness, getting locked up, escaping, and then freeing Electro. These two end up getting what they want, with Electro gaining access to the grid, and with Harry reclaiming Oscorp. Harry then gets access to a serum with some of the radioactive spider that he wanted. But this in turn caused him to go completely mad, and ended up with him turning into the spawn of the Green Goblin. This was the very thing that Peter was worried about had he given Harry his own blood. Fast forward to the end of the film, and you have Gwen join Peter against his wishes as they head to the grid to defeat Electro. However, what they didn't expect was a surprise visit from their guest, the Green Goblin. He then reveals that he knew Peter was Spider-Man, shocker, and even worse, runs off and flies with Gwen. I'm not one to victim blame, sometimes, but even Gwen should have known the danger she was gonna be in. For crying out loud, have you seen Spider-Man's villains? You got Vulture, Sandman, Venom, Dr. Octavius, and Mr. Negative, just to name a few. Even if we remove them as a frame of reference for danger, I'm sure she didn't forget the giant lizard who was 3 times the size of Peter and was just as smart as well. On top of all that, I'm sure that Peter telling Harry to drop Gwen and let her go wasn't exactly the smartest move, considering she was 10 to 20 feet up in the damn air, because we all know what happened after that. Thank you all for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I wanted to just say thank you guys for all the love on the recent videos and the channel in general. I really appreciate it. It's really motivating. And stay tuned for whatever I put out next. And this is Black Sugar Lovin' out.